Hello, in this video I want to have a look at North Carolina. Now I've been working on one regards to New York and how there are sets of connections between organisation, architects, financiers and etc. But they all sort of, well, the Hermetic Code, and so we have Hermes Trismegistus and or Thoth in Egypt, or Hermes as he's called in Greek, or Mercury as he's called in Rome. But how well, the seven liberal arts, especially the quadrivium, music, arithmetic, geometry, and astronomy, are at the core of what's most recognisably now understood to be Freemasons. But again, this goes back much further. But the symbol, because of the literature, the symbols, the connections between individuals, it's much more traceable as opposed to the ancient traditions, which it definitely comes from through the symbols, through proportions of architecture, weights and measures. It's all there. But some common themes, so for instance, sun, earth, moon and stars being not exclusive, but at least the most easiest to follow, I suppose, in a way, because of symbolism. People will always be able to argue, sort of gets lost in translation. But especially with sun, earth, moon and stars, the symbols are quite clear, but also so are the connections in regards to measurement, proportion, etc. And so here we see North Carolina, again, not so far away from Washington, and Washington not so far away from New York, and that will be the future focus. But I just wanted to get, this one's been bugging me for a while, I just want to get it out of the way. In Charlotte, North Carolina, we have one of the disc sculpture there in the background by Armando Pomodoro. These are almost like markers. They're very special sculptures. They're in very special places. But back to Raleigh, North Carolina, the state capital. This is the original where the legislature used to sit. And there behind it we see this war memorial. Again, that's got the measures and numbers, but I won't talk about it in this video. I'm just going to try and be quicker rather than go, because again, just in Raleigh and also in Charlotte, it's just so much to look at. And again, it just follows this constant pattern. It's done in the street plan, it's done in the architecture, it's done in the symbols. Well, for instance, here this is the shield of the coat of arms of North Carolina, but also now we see the state seal, the great seal of the state of North Carolina. There are a few things there to take away from this, and some obvious connections that follow through all of these. But so the original state capitol building, which is still in use, but that's not where the legislature sits anymore. But that was opened on July 4, or a Felion, and it was opened with full Masonic honours, which that's not so unusual, but it is very important for these types of buildings. And the Felion is important because, well, we'll get to that a little bit later, but July 4 usually connected to the Declaration of Independence. Well, that's not the actual date. July 4 come about, well, that was a couple of days after, and that had to do, well, it's a very special day in regards to sun and the earth. For instance, well, it's aphelion, which means that's the point at which the earth is farthest away from the sun. But the war memorial behind the state capitol, Lady Liberty sits on top, but we also see a reference to Lady Liberty in the coat of arms, or the Great Seal, with the Phrygian cap. I did a video on the Phrygian cap. It's an ancient symbol. It's got to do with Lady Liberty, freedom from slavery. As so often I hear that it's a symbol of slavery, but well, it's actually different from that. But also you see the cornucopia, or the horn of plenty, which is connected to the Greek god Demeter, or Ceres as she is known. So like, it's that horn, and it's full of, like, overflowing with fruit and abundance. So that's like one of the symbols, fertility, agriculture, those types of things. And so now we see the legislative building as it is now opened in 1963. At the front of the building there is a terrazzo mosaic which shows the seal of the state of North Carolina, and that's very interesting for a number of reasons, and one of those is that it's 28 feet wide. Apart from the symbols, the weights, the measures, and again I could go throughout the whole building. I'm just going to do quickly some parts of the building, but for instance, 28 feet. This important scale, the Cremona scale, so 7 feet equals 6 Cremona feet. It's a 6 to 7 ratio. And so we see that the 28 feet, as it applies in the Cremona scale, gives us a recognizable set of numbers. However, the columns of the legislative building are 24 feet. So the seal, the mosaic is 24 Cremona feet. The columns are 24 standard SI feet, which converts to 864 grains, 86,400 seconds per day, 864,000 miles for the sun. We get the moon. We also get the Vipara Yuga, the Vesica, Ark of Utnapishtim, and New Jerusalem being described by this particular number, or that's 288 inches. 288 is just one of the whiz-bang super numbers. For instance, the Capitol building in Washington is 288 feet. This is a core number within any Capitol building, Capitol structure. And it's we see the Mayan calendar, the sun, 288 Kelvin, weights and measures. Measures include temperature, etc. Also, it's the most beautiful number across 4 dimensions. Also, a good representation of the pentagon, as well as 288 hertz in music. But so it's basically covering the scale of the quadrivium. 72, I could do a lot more on 72. I've done it in so many other videos, but so just now we see the moon being described, we see the sun, and we also see the stars and the earth, because it takes 72 years for the earth to do, or for 1 degree of precession. 24, well, instantly 24 hours a day, 24 letters in the Greek alphabet. Even so, the Tetractys, Pythagorean Tetractys, which has 10 dots, if we add them we get 10. If we multiply each we get 24, and 24 in the long scale will give us a description of the earth. So we see across multiple forms, multiple references. 28 feet is 1008 grains. In Rosicrucians, very important. In Hindu, other Eastern traditions, very important. 112 palm, weight, so the imperial hundredweight, but also in the chakras in the human body, there are 112 cogs in the labyrinth at Chartres Cathedral. The Vesica also, so 265 minus 153, and in the reference to alchemy. But 28 feet or 24 Cremona feet also converts to 945 Doric grains. Well, the radius of the sun is 945 Egyptian royal miles, or 86,400 chains. That's 86,400 seconds per day. Well, another interesting point, so on July 4, the day that the original Capitol building was open, Aphelion, on that day when the Earth is the farthest from the sun, that's 9,450,000. I think I might have added one too many zeros there, but 945 also describes that. So that's interesting, because the 1776, that's a number that I'm going to get to, especially into New York, but that July 4 is the day celebrated, but it's not actually the day signed. That's because it was chosen because it matches Aphelion. Now, another connection with that is that 28 feet is 295.3125 Samian inches. This is another number repeated here in Australia, across the US, Canada, and elsewhere. It's very important because there are 29.53125 days in a synodic month. So that's basically a full moon is every 29.53125 days. There's a slight variation because of the elliptical orbit, but that number will match at some periods perfectly. What's also very interesting, because 29.53 multiplied by the diameter of the Earth will give you the distance from the Earth to the Moon. As we saw with Aphelion, Sun to Earth, now we see Earth to Moon, matching through very beautiful, very natural cycles. For instance, here you can see the placement of it, so it's pretty much right on the average, a bit closer to perigee, but it's literally true at some point in time. If you do a first page search and get it, you have to include the minimum and the maximum distance. So anyway, those are the buildings, but this is the town plan. So the streets themselves have the same set of information occurring within them. It's not just the building, it's literally the streets that you walk on, and unlike the buildings, the street plans are very important because they literally define the path that you walk on. The way you live, the way you drive, the way you walk is all defined by these. But anyway, most of the streets are 66 feet, except for a couple of main streets which are 99 feet. So 6 to 9, which is a 2 to 3 ratio. Now this is in Canada, as Frank Albo pointed out, 2 to 3 ratio width to height, which gives us the Hermetic Constant. So the streets here in Raleigh, apart from some other stuff, but they also contain this Hermetic Constant. This is all the Hermetic Code, Hermes. So anyway, to begin with, 66 feet, or 1 Gunter's chain. That converts to 1,056 fingers, which is important because apart from many other things, 1.056 feet equals 1 long foot, and we'll see how that pops up. It also converts to 198 hands. This defines the moon. But back to the legislative building, and we see the stairs, the main staircase. That's 22 feet wide, which will again connect very much to, so the building and the street plan will connect through sun, earth, moon and stars, through man-made cycles as well as natural cycles. And so there you see a house, those numbers connect. But to begin with, 66 feet or 66 hands on the staircase. The moon and the earth is described by size, but it also describes the speed of the earth at its slower point around the sun, 66,000 miles per hour, and also the weight of the earth, 66 whole bunch of 0 short tons. So we have the size of the earth, the weight of the earth, the speed of the earth, size of the moon, and we also have the solar system doesn't go in a straight line around the galactic core. It goes up and down in a cycle of 66 million years. So sun, earth, moon and stars we see described there. 264, that will also connect us to, for instance, the earth on the bottom, that's in long cubits, so the long scale of 1.056, as we pointed out earlier. Canonical cubits, the ionic scale, and the league, which is 3 miles in the so-called alleged modern scale. 792 grains on the staircase, or 792 inches on the 66 feet wide streets. Sun, earth, moon, New Jerusalem, and the speed of the solar system in a straight, if you calculate as going around the galactic core, the Earth's doing 792,000 kilometers per hour. So we see sun, earth, moon, stars, and the temple of man all described. This is like one of the unity numbers. This is one of the most important. Now it could go into a whole bunch of other ones, but for instance, because I had a file open and prepared, 88 constellations was chosen. 88 keys on the piano. Now these go back some time, and the 88 constellations is relatively modern, but as with screen resolution 1080, 1440, 1720, why are the modern secular choosing this? But anyway, the main streets in Raleigh are 99 feet wide, and so we can see the scale, how that converts. Now some of those have already been represented, but some, so for instance 132 on the long scale, that describes the earth, but also on older weights and measures. For instance, 13,200 fish was one last. So you see, as I've showed in other videos, how old weights and measure scales, from cloth to butter to beer, correspond so much, so wonderfully to the system. Okay, 396, we see the the Earth in the long scale or on the ionic scale. We see the moon now. That's happening again on 1188. So again, this is just a constant theme throughout all of these. You could do it in so many cities, and that they were retrofitted. So it wasn't some 1584 Sun, Earth, and Moon. 66 feet was not the original, was not some sort of colonial standard that they used. It was used in some places very early on, but then later, especially around the 1900, it became introduced. So Sun, Earth, Moon, and stars. Now this is not. It is Masonic, but it goes back to, well, at least to the Greek period, but actually back to Babylonian, Egypt, Indus, the stone circles in Western Europe, and so on. So with that, again, I'm going to be working on the New York one, but I just wanted to get this one out of the way. So the symbols, the weights, the measures, they're all there. It keeps repeating, even in newer buildings, such as ones like built in the 60s. It's not just some it wasn't just done in the earlier 18 and 1700s. It's been continued on since the post World War II period. It's also being still used in apparently metric countries in the most modern of skyscrapers and street plans. So with that, hope you enjoyed. Have a good one. I'd like to end with a little animal clip and have a look at the horse's eyes. I call him David Bowie.